Welcome to Hawaii Matters. I'm your host, Kathy with a K, and our guest is Lopaka Kapanui, storytelling, Hawaii history, culture. When I think of Lopaka and his wife, Tanya Kapanui, the art of storytelling and the reason why it's important, especially now in a time of AI, everyone's got a screen. And even though we are talking virtually, Lopaka and others like himself are continuing the oral history, which goes into mele and dance. And we'll find out a bit more about Lopaka Kapanui's origin story. You may know him as the ghost guy, the ghost story guy. You can find more at mysteries-of-hawaii.com. Your background, you even have some radio broadcasting history behind you. You were able to get an introduction, maybe unwittingly, via your mother and your grandmother. How did storytelling come into your life and understanding?
The short story is because of the way I learned from my mom or the way she taught me. I was not allowed to bring anything to rights or record. And so everything I learned is basically from mouth to ear. So I have to literally sit on the floor in front of her and listen intently as much as I could to everything she said. And then sometimes a lesson was like 20 minutes and sometimes like till the sun came up. But no matter how long or short, after that lesson was over, my mom always said, okay, so now tell me everything I just said. And a lot of that was frustrating in the beginning, but as time goes on, you have to recount, the lesson and give it back as detailed as possible. And so that is what I think laid the foundation for storytelling.
Lopaka, scary is not included in your website nor vocabulary when you're touring around, either here in our islands or during storytelling season, traditionally during the harvest season, October, November. Why, for Mysteries of Hawaii, do you not include certain words that other people might be kind of like to jump scare?
Right. But essentially, that's what other people are posting those words for, for specific reactions. But even though it's advertised, as a ghost tour, it's really an experience. The only way I can describe that is you have to be there to experience the whole thing. Gosh, it's hard to say without like trying to sound as if I'm, extolling my own virtues, but essentially the storytelling is designed to transport you. And so you're talking about words like scary. So the storytelling is basically painting pictures with words to bring you in and sort of forget that you're on a tour for like an hour and a half. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You were talking about how your mother would share stories and any amount of time, then she would quiz you. At that point, was it to be able to share back with her verbatim, or did she want you to retell it in a way that was already crafting your own voice?
Both actually. The latter was, later on, but she at some point mentioned that people who kept the genealogy of an elite had to be able to repeat the entire genealogy verbatim, because if you made one mistake, you'd be killed. So she was stressing the importance of that. Like, she wasn't going to kill me or anything, but the memorization and getting the facts straight was what was important to her. But it was actually Glenn Grant later on, when he was training me to take over the tours. He said, I want you to make this your own. He said, for now, you have to tell my stories. But he said, as time goes on, you'll gather enough of your own and make it your own. And, it doesn't have to be me. He said, I don't want you to be me. I want you to be you, which sort of answers your last question. Designed to make it my own, to make it, me rather than, be my mother, be Glenn Grant.
I think it's kind of like an introduction into what it means to hold on to the stories of a place, of a family, of a time. And do you also take part in storytelling festivals locally?
There used to be one hosted by Jeff Gears, so
Mm.
periodically do those until he retired. And I understand the city and county hosts a storytelling something, but I'm not sure what it is. But we also do what we call storytelling concerts.
Mm.
So like Hawaii Theater, the MAC, Doris Duke, places, on the continent like the Moore Theater.
Mm.
So there's an audience for live storytelling, and a lot of what we do sells out.
When you had become acquainted with your mentor, Glenn Grant, for those who may be a generation removed from Mr. Grant, can you give a backstory on his place in storytelling and Hawaii folklore and legend for those who may not be familiar right now?
Professor Dennis Ogawa told us that he grew up in Sacramento, where the pier is,
Mm.
in that area. And every weekend they'd go there to just go hang out. And every weekend they'd see this guy sitting on the beach by himself. And so one weekend, Professor Ogawa says his friends tell him, hey, go invite that guy over. And Professor Ogawa said, no, we invite that guy over. He'll be like a dog, we'll never get rid of him. So they invited him over to hang out, and that was Glenn Grant. And so they became such close friends that when Dennis Ogawa moved here to UH, he brought Glenn over to complete his doctorate. And so Glenn's first experience living here was in a house with four other candidates for their doctorates. And it turned out the house was haunted by the spirit of a woman who hated men. And so that was his first experience and introduction to the otherworldly in Hawaii. And that's how it all began.
And how was your experience, Lopaka, meeting Glenn Grant at the time?
So in the early 90s, I was working at a hotel in Waikiki, and the front desk was raving about a ghost tour in downtown Honolulu being led by a professor from the university. And so the following Wednesday, I went, and when I listened to the content of this tour, a lot of it was some of what I learned from my mom, so I was fascinated. And I learned this guy's name was Glenn Grant. And then the following Wednesday at Hula, when I danced for my cousin Keone Nunes, he said, by the way, our halau is going to be part of this monthly ghost tour out to Waianae. And he said, our part is the hula kahiko part. He said, but my friend's part is all the ghost stories. And he said, my friend's name is Glenn Grant. And so that was essentially the introduction.
Something just fell, or it sounded like something fell off a table over here while you were sharing that story. And I love it.
Well, if it floated across the screen, that would be funny.
Education, geography, culture, and small business, mysteries of Hawaii. We're talking with Lopaka Kapanui, master storyteller. This is Hawaii Matters. I'm your host, Kathy with a K. And it's so good to have people leaning in and wanting to hear about everyday places. Now they're hotels or shopping complexes. But well before that, you're able to kind of see this matrix, this way of the valleys and the beaches. How is it when you are sharing a story like downtown Honolulu that you resist going even further back in time, like even before the old Hawaiian Electric building on King and Merchant, that kind of thing? It's like before that, it was this and this.
So if we're standing in front of the post office across the street from the palace, I'll talk about a procession going up to the forest to gather koa trees to eventually make a canoe out of it, and how a sacrifice had to be offered. And the procession has prayers going and coming. And so they get this koa tree to the shore and, hew it to make a canoe. But I also say other types of wood were bought to the shoreline to be carved into ki'i, images for temples of human sacrifice.
Mhm.
And I reference what Westerveld called the lumber yard for ki'i, for temples of human sacrifice. And sometimes when the ki'i was done being carved, they would have to sanctify it with ceremonies and sometimes human blood. And then I would say, and that location is where we're standing right now.
And then people take a couple of steps back, just kind of allow room.
Yeah. And then you hear, whoa. And they're looking around beneath their feet. So it's that sort of description of those places.
Which story for you, Lopaka, do you remember as being the first that you shared that was of your own voice and crafting and pacing, that was very much where you are now?
The first one, when I started taking over the downtown walking tour, and by the way, when Glenn was doing it, it was from 7 in the evening to 2 in the morning. Yeah. I don't know if it's because it was only $5, but because, the ghost tours were a new thing and people would see a crowd of people, more people would start joining and you would have to tell more stories.
Mm.
So when I took it over, it went an hour and a half, and that's it. But the first story I told was at the Pohukaina burial mound about a security guard at the palace who told me that one night they had to chase a bunch of people out of the burial mound because some of them had shovels. And so it seemed like they were trying to dig into the burial mound. And he said the one guy he was chasing, from his pocket, you could hear this sound in his pocket, like there was a container with something in it. And so what I found out from the security guard, and it's funny he knew this because I knew this, I'm assuming, before he did, but it's the same knowledge. He told me, on Ni'ihau, when they put curses on people, they go to the grave of one of their own people and take out a bone and put it in this bamboo container and do this pule and send that thing, not only out as a curse, but they leave it somewhere where the person lives, and then the person starts to become physically assaulted by something they can't see. And so the security guard from the palace said to me, so the reason they were digging could it be because they knew there's still some remains at the burial mound? And could they have stolen a couple of bones in a bamboo container? And maybe that's why they were running. He said, but the question is, who are they going to curse?
You just heard from Lopaka Kapanui, master storyteller, former wrestler, former radio broadcaster, all around gatherer of facts, myth, folklore, and with his wife, Tanya Kapanui, they're able to gather stories and retell them very respectfully. Lopaka, how do you and your wife receive stories, and as far as like a rotation, because there must be like the greatest hits. You at this point, to me, that you may be like, people want to hear stories about different shopping centers. Like, I don't even want to say which shopping centers, because you can find that at mysteries-of-hawaii.com.
So sometimes when we're doing lectures, I talk about the 3 most haunted schools on Oahu, or the 3 most haunted shopping malls. And now, as of this past Sunday, we're talking about the 3 most haunted Walmarts. And then a lot of stories we receive come through email, in-person, text messages, Instagram, different platforms of social media. And we're so grateful that people are willing to share those stories with us because they're fantastic. And a lot of them are detailed information about a family associated with the location. And in curating those stories, my wife also does the historical research of that location. which might explain why they're having these experiences. So, for instance, in Ivalai, a lot of people who work where the signature theater is, Dole Cannery, and doing some research, we find out it was a place where they kept all the lepers before they sent them off to Kalaupapa, and that there used to be a brothel in the area. And before Ala Park and the welfare office was there, it was a spring, a natural spring. So yeah, there's that.
The 7 days that you are either walking or doing a bus tour, depending on the season and the week. Tuesdays, how do you allow yourself just one night a week to just keep open? Is that when you're talking story and making appointments with people, or are you really able to recharge and really let go of what you do? Because of course you're more than a holder and sharer of stories.
Yeah, Tuesdays would be my nights for my secret man meetings. But as we got busier, Tuesday was just the night to stay home with the family and relax. So yeah, that's normally the nights when we catch up on the things we need to catch up on. Writing projects, we also submit an article to the Aloha State Daily once a week. So there's that too. A lot of it is just catch up.
You and Tanya are columnists with Aloha State Daily. What kinds of topics or articles are they geared toward?
It's basically based on a lot of places that we don't realize have a spiritual ghostly history. For instance, like Windward Mall. Where else? We've done so many. There's so many we can't count. The old post office, places you never think of that have a lot of history. And so fortunately, those articles have been well received. So, we're still doing it.
It appears there's no shortage of events or perceived or otherwise happening on Oahu alone. Are there folks that have Hawaii ties and they've gone travel, they live in Denmark or, in Maine or something, and they reach out to you and share various happenings since leaving Hawaii? And, are you somebody who is comfortable offering advice when solicited, or, is it like the disclaimer for entertainment purposes only? Which, life is like that, even, going through the news for entertainment purposes only. It's rough out there.
Oh, yeah. We get a lot of expatriates from the islands living abroad who will email or message and say, when I lived in this place, so-and-so happened. Was it because I was a bad person? Was I possessed? What was happening? So, as best as possible with a lot of common sense, we help them sort of understand, what was going on. And a lot of it, people are shocked. I tell them the reason you've had this experience everywhere you go is not the places you're going to. I tell them it's essentially you. You have a level of some kind of psychic ability. And so that's why this is happening. And then I help explain A, B, and C. So it actually makes people feel a lot better. They don't feel like something's wrong with them. I've had people who say to me, I've been clairvoyant my whole life. I didn't realize it. So because no one was there to tell me what it was, I ended up being a substance abuser, or I checked myself into a mental facility.
We are talking story with Lopaka Kapanui, master storyteller. You can search for Mysteries of Hawaii, Lopaka and his wife, Tanya Kapanui. Read your submissions and also appreciate when you are on a tour that you listen and then offer up maybe some commentary. What is it like on the tours?
No, it's a lot of fun. We have a good mixture of locals and visitors. And a lot of visitors who come, don't want the luau, the Waikiki experience because, they've done it, been there, done that.
Mhm.
So, now they realize there's a little bit more to our island state than just the luau and the Waikiki. And so they get a lot of spirituality, a lot of history. And it's the experiences are very interactive. And so if you're not into being interactive, maybe this isn't for you.
I was reading a trend. I think it was applying for Gen A or Gen Z, where in 2026, the trend is outdoors, walking, getting a healthy heart rate, improving listening skills, and minimizing screen time. And so, Mysteries of Hawaii, Lopaka Kapanui, you're ahead of the curve, at least some 10, 15 years. What's the anniversary for the years that you've been providing this reminder to retain history?
Wow. How long have we been at it, my love?
You've been there more than 3 years.
More than 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ever moving you for
So, and my wife has been running this whole thing for 12 years.
Thank you, Tanya. So that's an interesting dynamic because your relationship has been a long time, but the involvement, how did that coalesce or come together? It's one thing for your significant other to support your hobby, your livelihood, but then to also come in and support in a really big way. I mean, to do research. Thank you. Seriously, thank you, Tanya, for doing that.
Oh, yeah.
That makes a big difference.
Yeah, she's the one that makes this whole thing work. So, she's all about research. I keep encouraging her to write her own book. We've collaborated on a book, Night Marchers, on our first fictional novel. So there's more to come. So this newspaper article thing is, it's great for her. That's her thing.
Like the outlet.
Yeah. Well, she's good at it. She's good at everything. That's so anything you need, any question you have, she has an answer for it, or the thing you need right in front of your face. Or if not, she'll find it for you. So the thing is, it started to get more busy beyond the tours. So people were asking me to fly out to certain places for stories and a lot of appearances. So that's when she decided that it was time to, stay here and run the business full time. Yeah, as you can tell by everything that's on social media and the website, I mean, she's the juggernaut behind the whole thing.
Yeah. If it's been a minute since you went to if you Google Mysteries of Hawaii, and like pre-pandemic, it had a certain vibe. And now it's just like there's so much information, there's so many links, the YouTube channel. Are you still able to do the live streams?
We're going to get back to that soon
Mhm.
because during the pandemic, we did live stories every Friday and we gained a whole new audience. So we have fans in Scotland, New Zealand, Japan, I think Yugoslavia.
Lopaka, can we talk a little bit about life before becoming a master storyteller of many things Hawaii? As you were a former wrestler, I had mentioned a former radio broadcaster. Were those two your dreams, small kid time, to pursue either that or both at the same time?
Small kid time into my teenage years, and even after that, what I wanted, I had this dream that I would end up being independently wealthy and being sort of a recluse, but not a weird one, and just anonymously give people money. Then I meet my wife, and she basically has that same thought, of doing the same thing. I never thought it would get to this point.
Mm.
So when I received the honor of from the legislature for being a master storyteller, what that originally was meant to be was our anniversary was coming up, And so I had a friend who worked at the state capitol, and I asked her, is there a way the governor can proclaim, Tanya Kapanui Day for my wife, for anniversary? And she said, yeah, let's do it. And my wife found out about it and just, put a stop to the whole thing. And my friend said, why don't we do this thing where, we give you this thing for master storytellers, like whatever. And so, that's how it happened. Yeah. So that was originally supposed to be for her, not me.
We celebrate Tanya every day. I mean, it goes without saying.
Yeah.
Talking about oral history, culture, and just continuing in real life conversations. And one way to start it is with learning about your place, the now, and one way of maybe getting that for yourself and your friends and family, listening into Lopaka Kapanui. He's a storyteller along with his wife, Tanya. Mysteries of Hawaii. You may know it as ghost tours, but there's a whole nother, there's so many layers of understanding about our place in the middle of the Pacific. How could you encourage people to ask and document their own family history?
Oh, that's what I always encourage people to do, to research their own family history, speak to their elders, don't throw them in a home because they look like they're old to you, but that's a living treasure to your entire history. So I tell people, talk to those people, talk to them, get to know them, find out about their history, big or small. I also tell people, if in your own hometown, on your own city block, if you want to do something like this, I always tell them, go find 3 places that have a haunted history and history in general, and research the hell out of those 3 places and start your own ghost tour. It's that easy.
What have you changed so far as when you're sharing stories? Maybe not the presentation, but so far as focus.
My main underlying focus, which people don't realize, is for that one night in that group of people, no matter how big or small, to bring them together and to get them to know each other for that hour and a half. So collectively, they're engaged, they're in it, and it becomes this experience. And so there have been a lot of times where, people end up breaking down and crying, or people follow me as I'm walking back to the car. Hey, I just want to thank you. This meant so much, so that's the whole focus of it. Even though it's a ghost tour, my focus is to help people realize that there's just more to this life we're living, to make it meaningful for them, which is why we end up having these fans who become friends, followers from around the world who keep up with us.
At the time of this recording, we're in October 2025. You're in the Western mode, I call it, of spooky season, October harvest. How do you prepare each presentation of stories when it's outside of the 808, the Aloha State? Or do you shift it at all?
Let me say this. We will prepare, and my wife will put on the iPad a list of stories that I'm going to tell for the evening. And then the second I get on stage, it just changes. It goes this whole other direction. This thing just hits me. I become inspired, and we're going this way.
Mm-hmm.
And thus far, it ends up being fantastic, because if it screws up, there's somebody in the back of the theater going, "We're gonna talk after this is over."
I love that. What I remember reading and hearing throughout my life how there's 2 deaths. One is when someone leaves the physical plane that we currently exist in. And the second death is the last time we speak their name. And so this is why I really appreciate what you're doing and other people who are keepers of stories. And not only keepers, but they're able to retell, and they want other people to continue to share on. How do you feel about that? Do you see it as a responsibility or like a gift?
It's a big responsibility. because, we're essentially talking about death. And because it's ghost stories, what people mainly forget is in order for there to be ghost stories, someone had to die.
Mm.
Death took place in order for us to be here for this hour and a half to talk about these things. The great thing about it is in Buddhism, they talk about the 5 things that are unavoidable in your life that you cannot avoid. That's birth, life, sickness, old age, and death. So no matter what you do in life, these things are unavoidable.
Mhm.
But in Buddhism, they say what matters is what you do here before you finally get here. Essentially, death in Buddhism is another transition, so life can begin anew. And because we're human beings, it's sort of hard to look at it that way and think about, well, this is going to be a transition to, another plane, because we're worried about job, money, finances, family, relationships. So we don't have time to think about those things. But as long as we realize, and I realize it myself, this is unavoidable. And so whatever we create here, what we do here is what makes it meaningful until we get here.
What brings you back each day to share these stories?
The surface answer is because, it's our business. Somebody made a reservation. But really what brings me back is the hope that what I'm doing that night for that hour and a half might change someone's life, somebody's perspective. They may have actually come on this thing thinking, well, this is over. When this thing is over, I'm going to go end my own life. But because of the content or just a word that I said, it just might change their whole perspective, and not do that thing that they're intending to do.
Storytelling, Hawaii history, culture, connection, and cartography, believe it or not. Thank you, Lopaka Kapanui and Tanya Kapanui. This is Hawaii Matters. If you want more information about Lopaka and his tours, Mysteries of Hawaii, Google, or mysteries-of-hawaii.com.
But thanks so much for this honor and this opportunity.
To replay or share this episode, search Hawaii Matters where you listen to podcasts. For Pacific Media Group, I'm Kathy with a K. Mahalo.